a little bit early today because I need to get going and rush off. So I'm here with my mum, and she's just finishing her breakfast. Sound a bit early. There she is there. Mum, you can see you now. So I'm reading my book. It's about a new approach to climate change. It's called Thriving at Nature's Pace. Do recommend it. And basically, it's about how we can unlock the value of the oil and gas and coal that's in the ground that we should not use, so that people who own them can have the value, and that value can be used to create the future and the shape of the future that we want. And what that boils down to at the end of the day, in one short, 2, 3, 4 short words, is about building communities. That's at the end what it's all about. And we're on the chapter here about the enemies of trust. And basically, if you think about how we do this and how we go about building communities, trust is a hugely important element. The problem with trust is that it can break. And the reasons why it breaks are the enemies of trust. So the reason why very often trust fails is not because of the lack of trust in the first place, it's because of the presence of these enemies of trust. And we've been talking about the 3 types of trust, the 2 of them, strategic and operational. Those deal with the actual point of the trust, what you're actually hoping to get out of it at the end of the day. So like trusting in the country is that you're hoping for peace and security for everybody there. Then operational trust, which is trust that what you're actually committing to actually works. So that means that the law and order and all those things work. And finally, a personal trust, that is that actually you get to benefit yourself. And this is hugely important, because if you don't get to benefit yourself, but you see other people getting to benefit from it, then you're never going to trust in either of those 2 before. So personal trust is probably the most important part. That's what we're going to read about now. So the most important category of trust is personal trust. Personal trust is built on being able to experience actual benefits. Imagine a situation where a person shopping for groceries comes across 2 types of tomatoes. One is associated with Thrive contracts and the other is not. Imagine now that the tomatoes associated with Thrive contracts appear to be overripe. The buyer, feeling strongly supportive of Thrive contracts, begrudgingly buys them all the same. So by the way, in case people have just joined, Thrive contracts are the things we use in order to unlock the value of the oil and gas and coal that's in the ground without extracting them. The seller, happy that the tomatoes are bought, exchanges some comments about Thrive contracts, but remains silent about the state of the tomatoes. In this simple exchange, the enemies of personal trust are apparent. The buyer, seeing the choice between 2 types, decided to support the Thrive contracts. However, the buyer feels he's getting a bad deal. That makes him lose the trust that Thrive contracts actually deliver personal benefits. Without this, he'll eventually stop supporting it. The silence by the buyer about the apparently poor conditions of the tomatoes is an example of misplaced benevolence. The buyer is giving too much benefit to the trust of Thrive contracts and is holding back on commenting on the reality of the situation. As a result, the silence becomes a place where doubt grows. This will become a hindrance to further engagement. The buyer may avoid the shop in future, and the seller will lose a potential long-term customer. It would be better to be honest about tomatoes and inquire why they're in such apparent bad conditions. So basically, that means just speak up. If you're thinking about it, talk about it. That honesty would let the seller know there is an issue. It will open up conversations and may help to repair the damaged first impression. For the seller, his or her silence is also an issue. The chances are that the dissatisfaction was apparent. Through silence, the seller creates a vacuum and encourages rumors. Rumors in a vacuum is another enemy of trust. This opens up the potential for the buyer to make comments to his friends that will create more speculation. Ultimately, trust erodes. The tomatoes' appearances are clearly different. Maybe there are good reasons for them in that state. Maybe the seller is trying to get rid of tomatoes that are past their prime. Either way, it's better for the seller to open up about why they are the way they are. The buyer can know the reasons and be more confident in his choice. The silence from both buyer and seller can be interpreted as tacit approval. This becomes false feedback. It is particularly dangerous because neither the buyer nor the seller actually knows what is going on in the other's mind. Somewhere among the misplaced benevolence, rumors in a vacuum, and false feedback, the trust that Thrive contracts would deliver personal benefits is lost. Thrive contracts become some grandiose plan that is disconnected from people and their daily lives This erodes trust that Thrive contracts can provide people with choice. When the strategic trust is destroyed, everyone leaves feeling they have been cheated. Today's debate over electric cars, heat pumps, carbon offsets, and so on all have similar concerns. Can the green transition deliver real value for money? It doesn't matter how great a cause is if people cannot have personal trust that they will benefit, then there will always be a hurdle to sustaining their engagement. The best cure to these enemies of trust is honesty. The essence of Thrive contracts is choice. People are free to choose. Good choices are informed choices. An alternative playing out of the scenario would have the seller asking the buyer if he wants to know more about the tomatoes. This opens up the opportunity for the buyer to inquire why they appear to be in such poor state. Equally, the buyer may open up with a question first. He may find out that a slower supply chain is used to transport them. That allows more energy to be saved and more Thrive coins to be made. The tomatoes are therefore further along in ripening than people normally see in supermarkets. This may then lead to the seller pointing out that there is a loyalty system where customers are rewarded with Thrive coins. In this alternative, the room for the enemies of trust is removed. The buyer can still be dissatisfied with the tomatoes. However, he is dissatisfied for an actual reason that allows him to choose. Maybe he'll still buy the tomatoes, or maybe he'll only buy Thrive goods that are not perishable instead. Personal trust is particularly important. People have to trust that the Thrive contracts will deliver personal benefits for their engagements to be sustained. So, Mum, how are you today? You're very tired today, aren't you?
Yeah.
You just had breakfast and you're falling asleep now. So that was that part. And we go on next time is about the trust ledger, which blockchains. You okay?
Yeah.
Okay. So I'm going to run. We'll say goodbye. Thriving at nature's pace, a new approach to climate change.
Then you sent me the mask.
And I'll set up the mask for my mom. So goodbye.
Bye.